We are the dwarves of Erebor. We have come to reclaim our homeland.
Hello, welcome to IGN. I'm Daniel, this is Alex. Now, recently we saw Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug?
According to the film, it's Smaug, yes.
And I liked the movie. I think you liked it a bit less than I did.
A bit like The Dragon, it's a bit bloated and I guess long.
Wow,
but
razor sharp critique
exactly.
there.
But I guess my expectation was high. I really enjoyed The Hobbit, probably more than most. So I wanted this to be, amazing. And it's good, but it's definitely too long. And I think part of the reason for that is because I guess Peter Jackson is trying to bridge the gap between the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Rings movies.
We just wanted to talk about whether he should have done that, whether it undermines the story of The Hobbit, stretching it to 3 movies, or whether it's kind of useful to have that bridging material to create this kind of very knitted together Middle-earth cinematic universe. So there's 2 scenes you had issues with, 2 parts of it, I should say.
Well, so, one of the scenes is referenced in the book, but doesn't really go into any detail, and one of the other parts is completely made up. So let's start with that, and it's Legolas. Now, when he was first cast, I assumed it would be a cameo, but it's not. He's in the film a ton.
He's in loads, a lot, and he's a lot of it doing his kind of superhero shtick, where he can just kill people. He's a bit like Batman, but with nicer hair.
Yeah, so, spoiler alert, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, and it doesn't really matter if you've read the book because it's not in the book, so there is one particular scene which is in the book, and so they're escaping from the Elven Kingdom, which is where Legolas lives, and they're escaping in barrels, and they're being chased by orcs, and Legolas comes to their rescue. And it's just all kinds of crazy. It's all the bits that I guess people criticised in Lord of the Rings.
In Two Towers. It's Two Towers where he kind of goes down the stairs on a shield, a skateboard, and people hated that. If you hated that, there's loads of that in this movie.
It's like that and then some. He's literally dancing across the elves.
Sorry, the Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it makes for an astonishing spectacle.
The barrel sequence, I think, is one of my favourite in the movie. Actually. Yeah. It does, I think, towards the end, just when Legolas becomes more prominent in that sequence, it kind of veers into kind of slightly more ludicrous territory.
Yeah.
But it is entirely new.
Yes.
And why do you think they did that?
Well, I can only imagine that at some point, because also Gimli is referenced, and only in passing, but I can only imagine that at some point in the third film, because right at the very end of the film, he is, riding off, chasing the kind of bad orc in this film. And I just think, well, that never happened. And they're leaving Lake Town to head off towards the Lonely Mountain.
So I wonder, obviously, Legolas has this kind of fractious relationship with Gimli in the Lord of the Rings movie. So it's almost kind of giving him some groundwork. He's encountered dwarves before. Yeah. He's met Gimli's dad. Yeah. And it's almost like sowing the seeds for that stuff later on. Yeah. But you see a lot more of the woodland elves, and there's an entirely new character, Tauriel, which is played by Evangeline Lilly, who I think is pretty good. But then they create this weird kind of dwarf elf,
very strange,
interracial, intermagical racial relationship.
But also, I don't really know where it kind of comes from, because they hint that Tauriel is kind of already, involved with Legolas at the beginning.
Well, he's keen on her. As my mum would say, always keen on her.
But then she develops this thing for a hairy dwarf.
Yeah, but to be fair, out of all the dwarves, he's the most boy band One Direction of all the dwarves. She's not going for Bomber. That would be brilliant though. She went for Bomber.
But it doesn't really, so far, and who knows what's going to happen in the third film, it doesn't really serve a purpose for us. And it feels like
I think they need a bit of a love story.
Much time shoving it down your throat.
I saw it almost kind of as a slightly more comedic kind of equivalent of the Aragorn. What's Liv Tyler's character called?
I forget, but yes, I know.
So anyway, it's almost a counterpoint of that relationship. Where is she going to sacrifice her sort of elven identity to be with him, which would be
not that good looking,
which would be a massive straying from the original source material.
Yeah,
but that's one part. The other part, which is kind of briefly mentioned in the source material, is Gandalf going away, leaving the Bilbo and the dwarves before they get to the Misty Mountain.
Yeah.
And
Lonely Mountain.
The Lonely Mountain. And he says, there's one line in the book, he says, he went to Dol Guldur to face the Necromancer, and that's it. Now, you know more about the Necromancer from elsewhere in Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth mythology, but it's substantially fleshed out, as it was in the previous movie as well. It was a big part of the previous movie with Radagast, and now it's even more a part of this movie.
And again, so it felt like...
It's probably a good 20 minutes.
It felt like, A, they needed another set piece, so throw that in there. But then B, this kind of, I don't know, plot dynamic to split the two up. Which, and again, it's another scene-setting piece. And again, we're not going to go into too much detail as to what happens, but it really is setting the scene for what's going to happen, not next film, but the film after,
But Tolkien was quite honest in his letters. He said it was a conceit just to get Gandalf out of the picture, because Gandalf's too powerful. Gandalf probably could take on Smaug. So it was kind of a necessary storytelling conceit on that level. But I actually, visually, I like what they did with the Necromancer scenes. But it's very much setting up, well, we're talking about spoilers, right? So they're kind of setting up, it's how Sauron comes back. He regains a corporeal form because now he's kind of intangible. It's a little bit, obviously, what Harry Potter did with Voldemort, trying to regain a bodily form.
It's very much like that, the way
well, I suppose that's what that's riffing off, rather than the other way around. And I don't know, I think if you're a huge Lord of the Rings fan, it's awesome to see that stuff on screen. And I think in years to come, when you watch them all as a collection, that stuff now will kind of be more satisfying in years to come when you watch them as a collection, or for people who watch them the other way around. Because the great thing about Sauron in the original Lord of the Rings book is you never really hear from him. He's kind of this very forbidding, far away evil.
You see him at the very beginning when he's
which isn't described,
kind of
which
like
isn't described in the books. So Jackson took some license there, which I think paid off, because it's a Hollywood movie. You need to have some kind of recognisable villain. And so I think the stuff in The Hobbit will serve Jackson's kind of cinematic universe really well in years to come. But I think it's kind of maybe destabilised The Hobbits as movies.
I think at the minute it's the stepping stone, but we don't know where the next step is. Because
so I think if you had two movies, the end of the first movie would be Reaching the Mountain. The beginning of the second movie would be just Smaug for the first hour, which would be an awesome way to start a movie, straight in there. And then it would finish with the Battle of the Five Armies. Whereas with all this extra stuff, you've got Smaug at the end of this movie, which personally, it seemed like it came after quite a long movie already.
But you're at least an hour and a half into the movie before you even see the dragon. And I must admit, I felt like the end of the movie was, I know it's always hard with cliffhangers, but this was probably the most disappointing cliffhanger that I've kind of seen in any of the Lord of the Rings movies so far.
So we've kind of concluded that it's really good as a way of kind of setting up the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and when watched together, it will be like the definitive take on Middle-earth, but maybe it destabilises The Hobbit as standalone movies. But we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below.